Welcome to the Synology Solution Day. My name is Satyam Gehani and I'm a Business Development Analyst for Synology here in the UK. My session today will cover how you can protect your varying business workloads against the ever-increasing IT threats. In the first section, we'll be looking at some of these IT threats and how you can guard the numerous workloads of your business with our all-in-one solutions and cover some example scenarios. In the second section, we'll focus on a more complete disaster recovery solution and how we secure the Synology NAS. And in the final section, we'll go into detail into speccing out and selecting a backup solution, as well as some key costs that tend to go overlooked. To start off, let's cover some of these IT threats, what they are, and what effect they have on businesses. Firstly, there are cybersecurity threats, with the risk of malware infections being on a constant rise as new infections are rapidly spreading every hour of every day. While the other facet of IT threats companies face are through business downtime in the form of IT infrastructure failure, planned maintenance, human error, or natural disasters. So you may ask, what is malware or ransomware? Well, ransomware is actually a type of malware that seeks to extort money from the victim's data. Encryption-based ransomware targets and encrypts files stored on computers and even network drives. Once infected, you are left with the option to either pay the ransom to regain access to your files or give up all your precious data previously stored on the computer or storage device. Being culpable to such a scenario can severely cripple any business, raising downtime significantly. Here you can see some of the damning stats of these cyber attacks, with 70% of infected business having actually paid the full ransom, while 50% of these companies have paid between $40,000 to $80,000 on average. And 1 in 4 paying users have never actually recovered their data. Some very worrying numbers there. In 2017, we saw the WannaCry ransomware attack. It infected older Windows XP machines through a security exploit and quickly spread through companies, infecting multiple people and entire organizations. One of the companies they infected was actually the NHS here in the UK. During its 4-day attack, it actually infected over 70,000 devices of the NHS and ended up costing them over £92 million. The attack was eventually halted within days of its discovery due to emergency patches released by Microsoft, as well as the discovery of a kill switch that prevented infected computers from spreading the virus any further. The attack was estimated to have affected more than 200,000 computers across 150 countries, with total damages ranging from hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. Now, cyber threats are one aspect. However, another major aspect of IT threats stem from unanticipated business downtime, coming from internal hardware failure, user error, and the like. Studies into how businesses are affected by this showed that $12,000 plus in damages are caused as a result of the average service disruption, with 40% of small businesses never being able to reopen after catastrophic data loss, and 50% of small and medium-sized businesses remain unprepared for disaster. An example of this was the day the internet went down. Amazon Web Services, which hosts websites and companies such as Netflix, Spotify, and Dropbox, had a billing system issue that was being resolved. This caused a domino effect that took down a significant number of servers of theirs. The server actually hosted their own dashboard servers, as well as downdetector.com, a website that actually tells people when websites are down. This ended up costing companies $150 million and resulted in a 20% website performance reduction. The cause for this? A single Amazon engineer's typo. With 94% of small businesses being concerned about cyber attacks, a number of them do not have adequate protection in place for the devices and software they use every day. They most often lack antivirus software and malware protection or even appropriate network securities. Further to this, a significant number of SMBs tend to handle their tech issues by themselves, while not actually having the appropriate training, certification, or product knowledge, meaning that a minor problem like setting up a server correctly can set business process back by days. Most companies rely almost solely on technology to organize and protect their information. They may think they have an adequate backup setup, but a shocking amount don't succeed in their efforts, as the data being backed up is either not protected not protecting the critical data, or the backup strategy is never tested through restoring. These all too common mistakes are incredibly unfortunate, but with the right strategies in place, an unexpected fiasco is entirely avoidable. A way of having the right strategy is to evaluate your workloads to then identify what needs protection and what form this actually takes. For physical workloads or cloud-based workloads, an appropriate backup suite is needed, protecting this data onto a NAS. Once the data is protected, this must then be taken a step higher, with protection of the NAS through an off-site replication or even an external backup up to the cloud. And this is actually what we'll be covering today, diving into the numerous solutions Synology offers for the varying scenarios of any business. So this is where our all-in-one active backup solution steps in to ensure that no matter where your workload lies, it is kept safe and protected. Having launched in 2016, Active Backup came alongside DSM-6 and brought BTRFS, and with it, in addition to a focus on disaster recovery solutions. Active Backup has been made available across our Intel CPU-based NAS. And since its launch, Active Backup has protected over 820,000 Office 365 and 200,000 G Suite accounts. Obviously, as I touched on earlier, it covers your ecosystem no matter what your workload, whether that's PC servers, VMs, or based on the cloud. However, we'll focus more on the data protection it provides for businesses in the form of PCs, servers, and VMs with Active Backup for Business. Combining your Synology NAS with Active Backup for Business, it provides you a myriad of features, giving you streamlined management tools that are ideal for keeping your data simplified and easily accessible, as well as maximizing your backup efficiency to ensure you've optimized your backups. In addition to the most important part, which is those restore options, giving you a number of different ways you can do this. Firstly, let's touch on that integrated support we offer. With Active Backup, you're able to back up Windows PCs from Windows 7 to Windows 10, Windows servers, as well as VMware environments such as vSphere and with ESXi, as well as Hyper-V and SMB and rsync protocols. Active Backup provides instant recovery to VMware and Hyper-V, as well as bare metal recovery, in addition to powering on VMs on Synology NAS. Adding to that, it's got global deduplication support as well as change block tracking, combined with that self-recovery portal, which is a web-based console for permitted employees to perform file-level recovery. So let's expand a bit on that ability to power on from physical to virtual. So for example, you've got a scenario here where you've got your physical Windows device, a workstation in your office, let's say, and one of your employees is working on something, but for whatever reason, an unforeseen circumstance, such as a malware attack or downtime with the computer, the PC goes down, and you've not got access to this PC anymore. However, you are backing up your Windows images from that using Active Backup directly to your Synology NAS. You can then take these Windows images that you've been backing up and use our virtual machine manager package to then power that PC that you had in a virtualized environment and have that up and running, good to go directly where you left off and where the last backup was. The other technology we include in Active Backup is global deduplication. The deduplication technology that Active Backup supports works cross-platform and cross-devices, as well as performing block-level deduplication, which means that as long as they're the same blocks like the blue, white, or gray blocks here, no matter if it's from different devices or different platforms like virtual machine and the cloud, only one block space will be used in the storage. It works wonders, especially for backup tasks across multiple PCs, as the operating systems and files across different devices and platforms will be deduplicated and only saved once. A company that actually took advantage of this technology was Shiseido. In their hunt for a cross-platform backup solution following a ransomware attack in 2017, they came across Synology's Active Backup for Business solution to centrally back up the critical data on their PCs, virtual machines, and Windows servers to a Synology NAS, and it worked wonders on deleting duplicate data, taking only 28 terabytes out of the total 58 terabytes on their server. They employed one of our RS3618XS units, providing them the expandability that they wanted to 36 bays, as well as dual Xeon CPUs for whatever their workloads. However, the real stats for them that was vital was the ability to back up to 500 PC and VM clients, as well as 500 to 2000 active backup user capacity. So these were great numbers that they saw with our unit that was ideal for their scenario. The restoration portal that I mentioned earlier has been created to really minimize the workload on IT admins, as users with privileges can dial directly back through their backups and restore the specific files and folders they have lost or require. So now I'd like to discuss an example scenario where we've got an SMB that has a number of requirements, as you can see on your screen. They have their first one being a multi-site redundancy, so they've got data across multiple branches of their offices. They want multiple endpoint backup for different sort of setups in these branches, as well as their NAS backup to have an offsite data archive. This is something we'll touch on later, so we'll focus on the first two parts for now. So being able to back up all of these with active backup and your Synology NAS, we've got workstations that can be directly deployed. They've got an agent that sits directly on the PC that handles the backup task. For servers, you've got a lightweight agent, and for virtual machines, it's actually agentless. In addition to the numerous features that we have for active backup, that being bare metal imaging, deduplication, and VSS integration. So for their scenario, they've got obviously multiple branches with different requirements varying across the business. So for the first one, they've got primarily PC workstations, about 165 of those. In the second branch, they've got a mix of PC workstations and virtual machines. And in the final branch, they've got a mix again. This time it's PCs and servers. So as you can see, regardless of their scenario, they can employ active backup for business, having all of their data, their crucial data, protected and backed up directly onto the Synology NAS. So this is a very useful capability of active backup for a lot of businesses, whether it be SMB or enterprise, being able to handle your workload regardless of what setup you've got. So it can be a mix and match, it can be just workstations. No matter what it is, it's able to be backed up to the Synology NAS. So considering the PC and VM clients they had in their scenario, an ideal model for their needs would be probably a desktop NAS, with them being an SMB, and a totaling to about 200 clients per branch. I think our DS3018XS model would be perfect for their needs, giving them the scalability that they require, with it going up to 30 drives, as well as being able to raise the memory and storage capacity to very high numbers. But as well, it's combined with the high performance that those dual core Pentium CPUs provide. So the DS3018XS being that ideal robust NAS, being able to stick through and handle and scale as well with the growth of the SMB. Now I would like to talk a bit about the shift towards cloud that's taking place. Figures from last year show that over £8 billion was spent on cloud computing technologies in the UK in 2019, with over 90% of these companies being on the cloud, and 60% of their workloads are running on a hosted cloud service. Perhaps you may think that data loss in cloud is not so much a common issue. However, according to research, 32% of surveyed companies have actually lost their data. In other words, there's 1 in every 3 companies experiencing data loss in the cloud. The chart on the right shows the causes of data loss, with the most common reason for software as a service data loss is end-user deletion, followed by employee overrides. Can you imagine what can happen if a collaborated document, such as a contact list file, is wrongly deleted by your collaborators and you don't have any backup of that? It can be very disrupting for your company. However, we're still being asked, why should we back up SaaS? Firstly, because of the responsibility of owning your data and backups. The cloud vendor's responsibility is mainly the infrastructure. Beyond that, it's a responsibility wholly of the user. Further to that, you of course want reliability of your data. It may need to be accessed at any point in time, And so backing this data up gives you that access and availability. And with data security being a huge issue these days, having to comply with GDPR or legal requirements, you need to have that data kept on site at any point. The data is kept safe and secure with an appropriate data protection system. So with cloud being actually a shared responsibility, it's not wholly on the cloud provider, but both on the cloud provider and the cloud user. You can see on the left that the cloud providers are responsible for mainly the infrastructure and the applications that come along with it, with the users being accountable for the data classification as well as the endpoint protection. What cloud providers actually give is high availability. Now, it's notable that this is not actually the same as data backup. Users are the only one to wholly own and be responsible for preventing data loss, as well as to retain data for legal and litigation hold. In fact, it is actually stated and recommended in Microsoft's terms and conditions for Office 365 that the data stored within their service should be backed up. With all these key points to note, with cloud services, in addition to the cloud no longer offering an unlimited solution, with the cost per GB or TB increasing, this is where our Active Backup for Software as a Service steps in to provide you with an all-in-one protection package for your data and workloads. Our Active Backup for SaaS provides an all-encompassing solution, enabling you to continuously backup your Drive, mail contacts, and calendar apps, as well as the data from SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. Active Backup brings along with it the expected features of single instancing and deduplication to keep that data optimized and secure. Here is a typical Active Backup for Office 365 setup that you may see. So we've got our live workload in the cloud here with Office 365 with G Suite. Whatever documents it is, you've got that backing up directly to Active Backup for Office 365 or G Suite on your on-premise NAS. However, in the scenario where you've got to recover this data for whatever reason, we've got our recovery portal that gives you granular recovery, being able to restore and put back in place all of this data that you may have lost. This can obviously be done via the administrator dialing directly into the data, or the general end user that can log in and recover this data. However, it's of note that the Synology will actually authenticate against Microsoft Azure AD and Google Secure LDAP, as these are integrated directly onto the software. The benefit of this being that there's just a single sign-on that's needed for both the Office 365 account or G Suite account and the Active Backup Recovery Portal, simplifying the process of recovery much more. It's a very straightforward deployment process, and I'll cover this now with a quick demo. So we'll go ahead and create that task within Active Backup. You're prompted with the choice of 3 different endpoints that you choose. Depending on how you've got this set up, you can choose whichever one is applicable to your scenario. Once you click next, it's then prompted with obviously the login directly from Microsoft integrated into Active Backup. So here you obviously select the appropriate account that you'll be logging into. Once that's done, you're then presented with a bunch of permissions that need to be accepted. So here's that full list of permissions. Obviously we're reading through and accepting and then seeing if it's appropriate. Once you then accept that, the same obviously has to be done for Active Backup, so just giving you the permission to redirect all of this onto the NAS. Once that's done, this will then connect to your Active Backup and link that Office 365 account directly into the application. It'll be ready for you to back up once that's done. So here we go. You've got to firstly select an appropriate task name. So here we're obviously putting something that makes sense. Then you have to obviously select the folder where you'd be backing this up to. Once that's done, you can then dial into each user that's associated with this header account. So you've got a full list of users that's there, and then you can dial directly into the Drive, Mail, Archive, Contacts, and Calendar for each. As you can see at the moment, everything's ticked off, it's backing up everything. However, for this scenario, we'll just be backing up the Drive and the Mail, so we'll deselect all the other parts that are not needed, and for one specific account, we'll be backing up the Contacts and Calendars. Further to that, you've got account discovery. So this is when newly created accounts are directly added onto the backup task for the Drive, Mail, as well as the mailbox and other applications. It's really useful when you've got new people entering the company, and their accounts are added immediately, searches for all of this and has it all directly added onto the backup task. Then follow on from there and hit next. And then you're prompted with the backup policy that you select. So you've got three options there. The first one being continuous backup. So that's simple as is. A continuous backup that's done in a non-stop manner. Manual backup as well, which is prompted by the user or the IT admin. And then you've got schedule backup. You can have this daily, hourly, weekly, monthly as you choose. So it gives you a lot of flexibility on how you want to set up this backup schedule. We've selected the continuous backup here, and then once that's done, you're just prompted with a summary. Hit apply, and then the backup task is good to go. So very straightforward process, very simple steps to do, not much involved, just logging in, having set up, and it's good to go. So we get asked often when's the ideal time to use active backup for SaaS. Here's one where we've got the workload on the PC being directly live on the cloud, having their documents and data that they're currently working on based on Office 365 in this scenario. So it's directly there, live, updated as and when that's needed. Once this is then done and is not required anymore, it can then be pushed onto the Synology NAS as an backup, an archive of this data. You've got control of this data, and it's stored locally directly on the NAS, and you can then take that further and have full control in scenarios where you need to access this data once again, for, as mentioned before, for loss of other data on the cloud, or dialing back onto previous files, or even for GDPR or litigation reasons that you've got to access this crucial data. You can then be brought back directly using the restore portal onto the PC, onto your workstation, and access directly. So you've got that data coming full circle back onto the PC. So really powerful scenario and useful scenario of employing active backup. Here we've got a solution where we've got an Office 365 within a university deployment. They as well have a number of requirements, mainly having a high number of Office 365 student accounts, as well backing up all of the main tools being used by the school, with that being mail, contacts, calendars, and SharePoint. And a requirement for this to have an offsite backup for their whole cloud-based solution. This is again something that we'll cover later on, so we'll focus on the first two for now. Considering the number of users and their requirements and the sizing table that we have, I'd recommend them to go for our SA3600, which is capable of handling in excess of 2,000 users. With it being one of our newer units being released, it's very powerful and very scalable for their needs. It can go up to 180 drives, but what's mostly important is that CPU, that 12-core Xeon CPU, being able to handle whatever their workload. So it's a very scalable unit that can go up to the petabyte solution, being able to match their needs and requirements for that data storage. So having those three units set up, backing up directly their workload on Office 365 would be a very robust solution for them, being able to handle their requirements and needs with growth, with scalability, but mainly with that high users, all being backed up to these NAS units. So we've obviously just covered protecting your workloads and backing up all of your data. However, you need to take this one step further and protect the Synology NAS that actually houses all of this data. In the coming section, we'll cover the tools and capabilities that we have in being able to let you really own this data and ensure that you've got a robust backup solution to match your data. With enterprises requiring more control on their backups and their data, we have our on-premise NAS backup solution, Snapshot Replication. Snapshot Replication is a point-in-time backup software that takes an exact snapshot of your data at certain predefined points in the day, giving you a restore point to fall back onto should you require this data. The key thing to note with Snapshot is that you are making an exact copy of the data. So if there are 10 terabytes on your head office, that means that there will be exactly 10 terabytes on your disaster recovery unit offsite. An example scenario where Snapshot is ideal is in a case where there is an electrical fault and your server room and server is totally ruined. You can point your network at that offsite server that you've set up, and with it being an exact copy of the data, you're able to instantly access that data and bring your company back online immediately. Within Snapshot, we've made management much easier through self-service recovery, which can be very simply done via FileStation or Windows File Explorer by users with eligible privilege, again taking off the load of your system administrator. In addition to the snapshot protection and recovery tools, Snapshot Replication also provides great tools for system administrators to shorten the time required for actual failover and monitor each replication task effectively, as well as perform test failovers, which is necessary to ensure the recovery procedures work as expected when disasters occur. Admins can easily control what is restored through point-in-time restoration, clone and restoring in place, as well as making previous versions visible to users. We've also got Hyper Backup. Now, Hyper Backup is a piece of backup software to be used as a sort of Swiss Army knife, keeping your backup plan as simple yet as powerful as possible. With it being a more traditional piece of backup software, this will be something you would need to restore in the event of a disaster. You're able to browse backups through FileStation or via standard file protocols as normal, and with the Hyper Backup Explorer, users can retrieve their NAS or cloud backups from computers running Windows, macOS, or Linux. Hyper Backup brings a number of backup advantages, as you can make use of cross-version deduplication and compression, which helps save on backup size and consuming less time and money. And with our block-level incremental backup, this drastically reduces the storage required for multi-version backup while keeping as many recovery points as your data might need. This is done by only backing up the difference between versions. You can also back up your packages and configurations of your Synology NAS. The data for this is then included in your backup file, which will make it very easy to set your NAS backup if you ever have to reconfigure your NAS device. It is highly configurable, whether you're backing up to an external USB device, another NAS, a server that supports rsync, or even a cloud account such as Google Drive, Dropbox, Azure, or even our own Synology C2 cloud backup. With C2 directly integrated into Hyper Backup, it offers users the security that's needed with its military-grade encryption, with AES 256 and RSA 2048, as well as the flexibility of access, allowing you to download to any destination, as well as being able to perform file-level restoration and have historical versioning within the appropriate plan. In addition to that, we've got our Synology guarantee, as we've put a huge level of commitment to the physical security of your data and our data centers to ensure that this is kept safe and secure, and you have full faith in us for the security of your data. Now that we have covered all our various solutions for protecting your data and workloads, let's have a look at how we can provide an all-encompassing setup for the scenarios we introduced earlier. So first we'll cover that SMB scenario. In their scenario, obviously they have their different branches with different workloads, all being backed up via active backup to their various NAS that they got set up. This can be taken one step further with a Hyper Backup backing up directly to an offsite NAS, which can then be taken a step further for all that crucial data that needs to be kept for GDPR compliance. They can employ Synology C2 Cloud and back up with Hyper Backup again onto that cloud to ensure that they've got an all-in-one backup solution that gives them the flexibility and ease of access for whatever requirements they have. So let's just recap the solutions that they've implemented. They've obviously got active backup, giving them that endpoint backup for their various workloads across the branches. They've then got Hyper Backup, providing that offsite NAS backup and taking that onto the cloud with Synology C2 Cloud. Combining all of these, IT admins can really take advantage of this by making use of that ability to power on the VMs that are being stored in the rack unit that they've got in the HQ, as well as that crucial data being restored directly from C2 with a lot of ease and granularity. So their whole scenario is a very end-to-end, all-encompassing solution that they've got set up with us. Let's now recap that Office 365 University deployment and see how they've implemented an end-to-end solution as well. So taking their setup and topology further, they've obviously got their live data in the cloud being backed up to the rack units that they've got set up there. They then take that a step further with snapshot replication being backed up to an offsite disaster recovery, giving them that point-in-time failure and really giving them the ability to ensure that their availability is very much there, and their data is accessible at any point. Combining these two together, it gives them a really optimal solution, with their cloud being taken care of by the active backup, and having that data then ensured that it's kept safe and secure on the other NAS with Snapshot. In this scenario, university students can actually restore their versions easily from the portal or within File Explorer, as I showed earlier. So again, a very all-around solution that they've implemented with two of our very powerful packages ideal for their scenario. So let's just go over what we covered so far. We obviously dial into the version backup applications that we've got, Active Backup, Snapshot, and Hyper Backup, and combining that with C2. These all come together, giving you all the tools that you need in your hand to combat any scenarios that you've got, and be prepared for any disaster that may occur in your business. You never know when this is going to happen, so having these tools at your hand and at your disposal at any time is really helpful and ideal in combating these situations. We'll now take this all a step further and go into how you can optimize your backup with our solutions and what considerations you need to make and some you may overlook. When building the appropriate backup solution, there are a number of things to consider. The first of that being to choose the right package and storage, followed by considering the capacity and scalability of that, and then analyzing the involved costs as well. So understanding when to choose what package is really important. Obviously I've covered all of this already, but just to recap, we've got Active Backup that protects your physical servers, your PCs, your virtualized environments, as well as your cloud scenarios being backed up to your local or remote Synology servers. Snapshot then takes that a step further, protecting your shared folders and iSCSI LUNs via local snapshots to remote Synology servers. With Hyper Backup, you can then back up those shared folders and LUNs as well as the package settings and system configurations onto a myriad of things. You've got local volumes, external USB devices, remote Synology servers as well, in addition to cloud and third-party vendors. So a lot of options there, and understanding which one works for you is really important. So for example, you've got Hyper Backup that would be ideal for SMBs, as I showed, and Snapshot would be the perfect solution for enterprise that require that point-in-time backup that Snapshot provides. We always recommend using each of these concurrently with each other. However, it depends on which is appropriate for your specific scenario. Choosing the right storage is very important. Understanding the cost per terabyte being the first thing to consider, as well as the RAID configuration that would be ideal, with each RAID setup being different on different workloads, as well as understanding if SSD caches are actually useful for backup. So we get asked this quite a lot, and the answer to that is definitely. As you can see from this table, we've got with and without SSD cache and the time it takes for restoration and rotation of versions. So without one, it takes upwards of 15 minutes, and with an SSD cache, it's dropped by 1/3 actually, under 5 minutes there. And the reason for this is a caching mapping table that's stored on the SSD cache. This directs the restore task or the rotation task directly where it needs to go in the whole storage and in the whole data that's being backed up. So it really speeds up the whole process. The next thing you need to consider is the capacity and scalability. We have a very useful guide that provides a vital tool in finding out which is the ideal NAS product for your needs. This tool focuses on a few variables of your scenario, that being the total size of your backup, as well as the average daily change rate, the versions of your retention policy, and the deduplication rate. We'll be covering how to use this in the coming slides. So let's bring back that scenario we had earlier for the SMP. They had a number of requirements, mainly having a varied workload that they had set up, PC clients, VMs, and physical servers, as well as a requirement for room to grow. So plugging in the factors for the scenario, that being a 3% change rate, a retention policy of 20 hours for 28 days, 12 months across 3 years, and an assumed dedupe rate of 40%, and their requirements for 10 terabyte hard drives that will be used. So plugging that into the formula and performing the calculations, you can see that the total data that they've got from the various clients and data size per client that they've got brings about 34.67 terabytes, and after 3 years, once that calculation is performed, you can see that the total size would be 60.1 terabytes. For this scenario, the ideal unit would be a 6-bay one, and as recommended, that DS3018XS would be the ideal one. It provides them the hourly processing capacity of 647 GB, with it taking 54.88 hours for the first backup and about 1.6 hours for each incremental backup. So a very robust unit that matches all of their requirements. So considering their scenario and their setup, they obviously would have the main unit and then take an expansion unit that would be required, um, and then fit that in with 8 bays of the Seagate Ironwolf Pro 10TB hard disk drives. This whole solution would cost just under £5,000. So it gives a good indication on how much such a solution may cost, obviously depending on their needs, as well as the price likely varying depending on their configuration, currency fluctuations, and the selected partner. Let's now consider that second scenario where we had an Office 365 within a university deployment. So their requirements were obviously for 17,000 student accounts with room to grow and having a very optimized solution for their needs. The factors for them would be very similar to the previous one in terms of the change rate, retention policy, and dedupe rate. So bringing back that sizing recommendation, I had obviously recommended the SA3600 being ideal for this scenario, giving them the ability to achieve a petabyte scale storage uh, with a lot of room to grow for their needs. So let's just map this solution out and see what would be like in comparison to a third-party solution. In particular, we've got VM here. We have a 0.82 pounds per user per month cost, and with it being a 3-year minimum commitment, if that's mapped out across the 3 years, you can see that it costs quite a significant amount of money. So I've obviously used their own sizing tool, and it's given that figure. So if we take this and compare that to the Synology solution that we'd introduce, um, with the Synology solution just being a one-time initial NAS purchase cost, um, and assuming that the user allowance would be of 500 GB per account, that works out to about 8.5 petabytes for the 17,000 users. This would probably require 3 sets of SA3600 units, as well as the expansion units. So fully maxing those out with 16 terabyte hard drives, the Synology solution will actually be able to achieve 8.64 petabytes. So it'll easily be able to handle that maximum case scenario where each user is fully using up the 500 GB. So that's obviously assumed to be at 8.5 petabytes, and the solution that we're offering is able to cover that and have some on top of that. So fully kitting all of that out, the NAS with hard disk drives and an SSD cache, that works out to about £299,000, so just shy of £300,000 compared to the £500,000 for the VM solution, which note is actually just for the software and not including the hardware, versus the Synology all-in-one solution, which is both hardware and software combined. There's a huge saving across those 3 years. You can see that the price per user per month is quite low compared to VM's just the software offering. So now going into the hidden costs of backup solutions. For most companies, one of the major reasons they simply purchase backup software is so that they can leverage their existing hardware. However, what they often overlook though is the software license fees associated with the total cost of ownership. To begin with, there are two types of business models in the backup market. First one being backup hardware and backup software sold separately, and second one being all-in-one integrated backup appliance. And the second one being an all-in-one integrated backup appliance. In most VM backup cases, vendors typically take different approaches to how they charge you, whether that's per CPU socket or per VM host. Depending on your setup, a per host charge may not always be more expensive than per socket. Aside from licensing fees, don't forget to add maintenance renewal costs for software updates, patches, and technical support. As the graph on the right shows, if you compare the 3-year total cost on backup software, there's almost no cost difference between the perpetual and subscription licenses after counting in support renewal costs. When it comes to software management, since the integration of software and hardware involves two different companies with different support systems, businesses need to look at the software and hardware separately to figure out the root cause when a problem arises. If you don't have your own professional IT team, you'll probably have to reach out to different vendors, going back and forth to narrow down the problem, which often leads to wasted time and effort in the end. The last thing we need to keep in mind is something we often neglect: the cost of hardware. Many businesses are limited by their budget, so they usually opt for freemium software. However, we all know that there is no such thing as a free lunch, and freemiums usually come with their own feature limitations, the major drawback of which could be to perform a full backup every time. Take a simple scenario as an example. If you want to keep daily backups for 7 days and the data size is 1 terabyte with the average daily change rate at 5%, you will find incremental backups will save 80% on storage. By contrast, it's very likely you'd waste over 6 times more space at the destination server compared with freemium software. Make sure you also include the cost of hard drives and server hardware, especially when you want to back up more complex business workloads. Now, after all of that, you may ask, is there a backup solution that can help you minimize all the hidden costs? Well, we compared the license fees from other backup vendors with similar feature sets. In just the first year alone, Active Backup saves you more than 50%. The cost savings can be even more significant when you compare other backup storage servers or when you need to back up large business workloads. So in summary, this table below shows how Synology Active Backup for Business compares with other backup solutions, whether that's the freemium or the premium license software models. Besides the cost advantages, Active Backup also integrates plenty of features that I went into earlier, giving you a modern backup software that lets you manage your backup tasks from a simple console, assuring you fast and reliable recovery. In conclusion, we have 3 main takeaways from today's session. First one being those IT threats and how to protect that with our all-in-one backup solution, Active Backup, and then how to protect your NAS with those solution scenarios for your different workloads. Finally, we showed how to optimize your backup through speccing out your system as well as those hidden costs that you may overlook. I do hope that this was a very useful session for you, giving you an insight into all of our different solutions that we provide um, for backing up and keeping your data secure. I'd like to thank you for joining me and taking your time out, and I hope to see you in the future in one of our webinars or the next solution day. Take care.